question.
All right, so what experiences did you guys have while in the APAPA internship program?
So this past 3 months with interning at Mayor Adler's office, I had the privilege of working on the housing and land use policy in the city of Austin. So this looked like doing a lot of policy research to see what other cities were doing with housing and seeing what was successful, what was not so successful, and how we could apply that to the city of Austin. And this involved a lot of interviewing people. I interviewed professors at the University of Texas who researched this policy. I interviewed other city leaders in other cities about how their cities were responding to certain issues such as increase of people with the housing market. And through this experience, I was able to gain a much broader knowledge of what policy making is like in general, but also have a very large depth in this specific area of policy and land use and housing.
I think in general there's 3 concrete things that interns learn when they do this program. The first is they learn how government works, so how bills get passed, how funds get allocated, how council meetings and board meetings go, how civilians show up and petition for certain causes, and how that interacts with how legislation actually gets passed. The second is the actual work you do as an intern involves a lot of analysis of different policies, so you get to increase your writing skills, your critical thinking skills, and your analysis skills, and you get to work on the issues that you care about. So you can ask to be put on environmental policies or policies that impact your particular neighborhood. So that's pretty cool. The last thing is, what was the last thing? You learn how workplaces in general function. So for people doing this internship, it's probably the first time that you're doing a full-time job outside of school. So you know what it's like to have that commute to work a 9 to 5, and also how internal politics work, and how you learn how to get command over the work that you're doing, and how to communicate your progress in doing that work to people and your manager over time. So that's a great experience as well.
And do you think from this experience, did you find any find anything that improved your skills, or any skills that you improved, maybe planning or something like that?
Absolutely. Just like Salvin said, being in that balance, managing work, managing life, that's a lot of skills that I didn't have any experience in prior to doing this internship. And what this looks like is a lot of time management. You have these projects that are very large projects that that are assigned to you for a month of your internship. And it's up to you. You have a lot of freedom, but that means you have a lot of responsibility to figure out how to plan this project out, how to divide this up into smaller sections, and take responsibility for your own work. This is a lot of growth, a lot of failure, but learning through those points of failure and working with your supervisor. I had my supervisor at the mayor's office was directly working for the mayor, so it was also learning to work with different chains of authority and learning who to go to ask for help. And with time management and project management, there also comes a lot of social situations that we're put in. And it's learning how to work with meetings, work with team projects, and these are meetings that I often felt like I was the imposter there. This is a freshman in college, and these are 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds who have had decades of experience in politics and government. But I realized that's actually a lot of opportunity for me to learn from all their experience. And it's being very open-minded about learning new issues, learning new perspectives. And it's been a very eye-opening experience for me, and it's grown my passion for civic engagement.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
I was what skills have you developed through this program?
Yeah, sure. So before the internship even started, we were put through a series of workshops and seminars where we learned how to speak in front of others, and we also learned how to effectively approach others and question others in certain situations. So those are kind of transferable social skills that we learned prior to doing the internship. In the internship itself, I think there's 2 sets of skills that we learned. The first is contextual skills, so that's learning about the knowledge within the government, things that are relevant to you and relevant to society, but not necessarily things that would impact you if you went into other fields of work. But so, for example, I learned how bills were passed and how terms worked for different legislators and things like that. On the other hand, I learned a lot of transferable skills with regards to meeting different people every day. That requires you to understand the power dynamics between different council members and how alliances work across the floor. That was especially important because every day you're going to different meetings. You're going to like a media, you're going to council hall meetings where you kind of have to pay attention to what different people are saying, and that affects the way that you think about your work and also the way that your manager thinks about that work. And this is something that will apply to you wherever you go. So I think learning to pay attention to things that are normally otherwise obscure or not necessarily things that stand out, that was something that was very important for me.
And so, what was a typical day like for you as an intern?
I woke up in the morning. I lived in West Campus, so I actually was able to manage this internship and do this internship while also doing classes. So I had classes in the morning from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 noon, and after those classes, I had an hour chunk for me to grab lunch and get to the internship. And then from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. was the hours that I had Monday through Friday. And what it looks like is we as interns, like there are all these exciting projects that we get to do, and we get to feel like we're making a big difference, but also like serving constituents as people in government is a very personal task, and that means that we have to spend time actually talking to individual constituents, knowing their concerns. So each day when I went into the office, I spent about 30 minutes checking the voicemail for the phone line for the mayor's office. And each voicemail, every single call that the constituents give us, we have to listen to. And if they're asking a question, then we also participate in responding to them. And maybe another half hour is spent responding to them and just helping them out with their problems. After that, it's largely up to me on how I manage my time, but with these different projects, these different responsibilities, I normally break that 3-hour chunk into 1.5 hours working on my own project, and then another 1.5 hours doing policy research. And it should vary depending on which office you're interning in and who you're interning for.
So I was commuting from home, so I had to leave around, to get there at 9 o'clock. I worked at 9 to 5, I had to leave around 8. After I got to the office, I was given a lot of autonomy with regards to the work that I was doing, and I was put on a long-term project that required a lot of software knowledge and coding. So I was generally left to my own tools and coded until lunch. And then at lunch, I went out with some coworkers, or I went and got out lunch by myself. After lunch, depending on the day, there could have been an outing. So for example, one time we went to the Austin Public Central Library before it was opening. We got to tour that because as a city employee, you're given opportunities to see things before they're actually released to the general public. So we could do things like that, or we could do other things like going out and meeting constituents, like you mentioned. And then after that, I just went back to my work, kind of coded a bunch of different things, and then at the end of the day, or throughout the day, if I needed to, I talked to my manager about the different requirements that the project needed, give them some status updates, and that was about it. Also, sometimes we got free lunch, so that was nice.
So I guess we could do a follow-up for like what projects exactly did you do? And I guess since you were first talking about your coding project, you want to like elaborate on that? Yeah,
sure. So Mayor Adler was trying to pass a number of policies that were controversial within the 10-member council. So he needed a majority of the votes to get those policies passed. And he wanted to understand historical voting patterns on particular policy categories. So environmental policies, economic policies, that kind of thing. And at first they told me to go and manually count the votes that happened in like the last year or so, but I took a more computer science based approach, and there's transcripts of council meetings that date back to I think 2010 or so. So I wrote a computer program that went through all of the transcripts, collected all of the data based on their votes, and then created a nice dashboard that showed the percentage of the time that each council member voted on a particular policy versus voted against. And Mayor Adler was able to use that to determine his stances on particular policies without having to leverage too much political capital than he actually had. So.
I also got to work on a lot of coding projects. I think having that coding background is very vital in the political sphere, where oftentimes a lot of the methods and processes are pen and paper, very manually counting stuff, and there's a lot of opportunity for automation. So I had the privilege of looking at this plan that Mayor Adler also wanted to implement with housing and land use. And we, as the city, oftentimes do smart area planning in which we see the specific area of the city that we really want to develop, and we start like focusing with economic development policies, or we focus on certain development projects. And we wanted to see like if there was any difference in the macroeconomic indicators of these areas that have small area planning versus areas that we don't small area plan in. And this meant collecting data from the Census Bureau, collecting data from our City of Austin government open data sources, and managing these and putting these into a map. And I did a lot of data analysis with scrubbing the data, making sure the data looked good, and then also like how to map this out well so that we can present these data points in a readable fashion to the mayor and to the other council members.
And so I guess moving on to our final question, do you have any big takeaways from this program, or how it like affected your life in any way, like opened your mind to like the world of politics or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Prior to this internship, I was very civically engaged, at least among people in my friend group, and I was always interested in politics at the national level. I was interested in how the president's policies and things that were happening at the White House affected me. But when I did this internship, I realized that the policies that matter the most, that affect us personally the most, are those at the local level. And I got to play a large part in that. I had the privilege of seeing how an intern like me at the mayor's office can actually make a difference with people's lives. Like the people that I would talk to on the phone, they were the ones that were affected by the policy that I did. They were homeowners that owned homes in the areas that I was researching. They were potential like developers that also wanted to grow the city, and I saw a lot of the people that were the engine that drives politics, that drives growth, and that drives the future of Austin. And I'm so privileged to have seen that side of government.
Yeah, like Kenny said, local politics matters a lot more than people grant it for. And I think I was aware of that concept, but until I did my internship, it didn't really become, that's when it really became clear to me. Like, I cannot tell you prior to this internship how street names change, or how us as individuals, how our votes will translate into affecting policy. But when you do this internship, you visit different communities, you realize how different East Austin is from the rest of Austin due to historical policies that have caused gentrification, and how these problems affect people in a very real way. So I think this internship is especially important for people in our generation, because we can use the technical background and the knowledge that we have to modernize government. So when it comes to work to value ratio, I think being in government is maybe one of the highest for people in our generation specifically, because we want to get things done and we want to do it in a socially aware and conscious way. And being in government exposes you to all of the different facets of environment, economy, all of the different politics that affect individuals, and you learn how to navigate that in the most effective way. And so, yeah.
So thank you, Phoenix, and thank you, Sovereign, for taking your time to give an overview of the APAPA internship program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.